we are and that we support all of these events in our community. When it comes to the compensation of the mayor pro tem, when the city was first formed, the mayor's salary was zero in 1953. It was a volunteer position, basically. And for many years, that was the compensation. During Carlita's time, I think it ended up going to $500 a month or $1,000 a month for the mayor, and it became kind of like a part-time job. She was also a part-time EMS ambulance provider for the city, so she had a smaller salary. Then in the mid 1990s, it went from 12,000 a year to 48,000 a year. And then in 2010, it went up to almost $80,000 a year for the mayor because the responsibilities of the mayor has grown over that course of that time. But at the same time, there was no consideration for the increased responsibilities for a mayor pro tem when they had to step in and do those extra responsibilities. And so that's what this compensation addresses, is that the reality is that if the mayor is not unable to be there, the mayor pro tem has to come in. And for someone who has a full-time job someplace else, for them to have to use personal leave to come in and do city business is not fair for that person to have to make that sacrifice. Fortunately, there have been people who did not have to take leave to serve in the as acting mayor during that time, but this is a small amount. If you think of $100 a week, recently our mayor pro tem, she was here more than 20 hours a week helping things. That's $5 an hour. Is that really overcompensating somebody for their civic duty? No, I don't think so. So, I think when you put things in perspective, it's not a matter of enriching ourselves. It's a matter of saying that your service is valued in the community. There's high expectations for you, and there's lots of responsibilities. It's just not showing up to a meeting twice a month. So that's what my point is, that I think we have a very good and active council, but that hasn't always been the case. There have been a lot of years where it was like pulling dead horses to get anything done. So I want to keep that momentum going, and I think, encouraging people, dangling carrots in front of them, saying, "Hey, you're getting this kind of money. What are we getting out of it for you?" Is kind of like holding them a little bit more accountable. That's how I look at it.
Anyone else? Then I'll go ahead and close on this and say this. I think I was very fortunate and somewhat privileged that in my rookie year on this council, 0506, that I sat between the mayor and the mayor pro tem. That meaning I sat off of Jeff Jacobson's shoulder, and to my other shoulder was Doug Isaacson, the pro tem. And from those two guys, I paid attention and I learned. And so when 06 came along, and Jeff's heard me say this, he knows this, he knows I really mean this. Had it not been for term limits, he would have still been the mayor. And he's heard me say that. Well, but it became one of those things where one of the things I was involved in was required by law back then. We had to have a what we called under the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, those are two U.S. senators, we had to have a type of audit committee, meaning that second set of eyes, and how we had to adjust the pay. Because, it's not a perfect world. And for whatever reason, for 14 years, the city of North Pole never adjusted its pay chart. So imagine that from 1992 to 2006, all they got was a little small cost of living increase, but no overall adjustment, and we were losing. The mayor at the time, Isaacson, appoints me to the Audit Finance Committee and gives me a job. Did I balk? I'm not being paid for this. As a matter of fact, I spent so much time that there were people in this city hall who thought that I was retired, but I was a full-time air traffic controller. So I never looked at it like, well, hey, you're not paying me to do this. I looked at it as I've been given a job, I need to do it. So I did it. And then that went on to the fact that it wasn't just enough that the rank and file got an overhaul. And by the way, the overhaul was 12%. Okay. Well, part of the problem too was that the council wasn't getting properly paid. It passed them by, and neither was the clerk, and neither was the office of the mayor. So I had to work that in to 2008. And that was the first year that we went from 52,000 and we went to $5,750 a month, which is 69,000 per annum. And I had two ways that I deduced that. I said, this isn't about who the mayor is. Don't worry about who the mayor is. This is for the office of the mayor. Is the office of the mayor North Pole worth 69,000? So that's how that got defined. I had two methodologies within $500 of each other. And so that worked out pretty good. But the mayor that was seated at the time could not get that. Neither could the council that was seated. They had to be reelected. And some of them were, including the mayor. So that's where that was at. Now, we did go out and contract, and some people like Chief Heineken, you'll remember this, we brought in Dave Evertson from Utah, from Municipal Solutions. And for whatever reason, in 2021, they just couldn't get, this is after he interviewed the council members, he couldn't come up with a reason to change their pay upwards. In the strategic vision guide, I used to argue, why is our city council worth anything less than the assembly or the city of Fairbanks? Because we were back then, we were just barely going from $75 a meeting to $125 a meeting. Okay. But for whatever reason, Dave Everson said, I can't come to grips with it. I'm going to quote somebody. He's sitting right here. He's going to go out of office when I do, and that's Mr. Skips. David Skips said something I thought that was profound. I didn't join this council, and I guess Mayor Ward must have asked you to join for a vacancy. I didn't join this council to make money. And so I don't think we should be voting to have a pay raise. And I remember that all too well. Okay. And I was mayor by then. So what Mr. Turch is saying to me resonates. There are a lot of things that are resonating here. For whatever reason, I don't know why it is. But the sentence on lines 40 to 42 just don't seem right to me. I can't imagine why. It's just something about it doesn't seem to have a connotation that I could figure. I'm not saying that the pro tem shouldn't somehow. I'm just saying, how do we come to that conclusion? What is somebody going to say 10 years from now? Where did that come from? That's usually what I'm doing. Where did that idea come from? And I can't see any nexus to it, is what I'm trying to say. And so what I'm saying is, when this comes up, I'd have to vote it no, because there's two elements in here that I like a lot, and it's based on my own personal experiences. Whether we attend in person or virtually means a lot to me. For that strategic vision guide, I was sent to Juneau in 2014. I didn't know why the mayor, Ward, wasn't going to Juneau. He sent me for that legislative week. He sent me to bring home $3.5 million from all the different capital improvements. And I came home with 3.1 million. I still don't know how I did it, but I put 5 weeks into it. Okay. And yet they told me, no, you can't have your council meeting night the day after President's Day because you weren't here in attendance. Yeah, but I called in. Well, that doesn't count because we didn't have it in code. So here I am doing the bidding of the city, doing the job of the city. And then I'm also doing the job of the mayor. But based on the way the code was, I couldn't get compensated. So I look at it in certain ways that may be different based on my experience. We're products, and sometimes we're victims of our experience too. I just don't see the reason, but I am glad that we have in here the word virtually, and I see that we're trying to fix that. I mean, I would say that if it was for a period of more than 2 pay periods, if someone's filled in, and that's for 28 days, once they filled in, if and only if, through no fault of whoever the mayor is, you don't look at it, well, the mayor did this on this occasion. No, you look at it in its abstract form, in the office of the mayor. It's how you have to look at it, not how this actually occurred. So, but that would be the only thing I would do was amend this lines 40 to 42, that if it goes to a period that exceeds 2 pay periods, then they would be compensated. Okay. And I think Mr. Jacobson said it pretty succinctly, that we're not talking about a lot of money here. We really aren't. But there are those of us who say this wasn't a thing meant to make a lot of money either. So that's where I'm going to rest at that. So does anyone have any more to say?
Were you making an amendment to,
Yeah, I was trying to make an amendment on lines 40 to 42 to say, in the occasion that the mayor pro tem must step in the office of the mayor for a period exceeding 2 pay periods. So if the mayor's absent for 2 pay periods, then they would receive this stipend unless somebody wants to amend the amount of the stipend.
is there a second on that motion? The motion fails.
So if there's no more discussion, we'll call the question.
Okay, on ordinance 2024-03. Yeah, we did the motion to adopt.
Yep.
An ordinance of the city of North Pole amending the compensation of council members. Ms. Clack,
Yes.
Mr. Church,
No.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
The motion passes 4-2.
You didn't ask me to vote.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, Mayor Welch. Mayor Welch.
You had a parliamentarian here.
I
I say no. I say no.
Okay, motion passes 4-2. Apologize, Mayor Welch.
It's all right.
That brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is the request for the ambulance.
Bring the chief back up. And there's no one in the public to testify, is there?
I have nobody signed up for public testimony and nobody waiting online.
Thank you.
So, yeah, we humbly request the city council to approve the purchase of let me read it correctly, the purchase of a Demers Type 2 ambulance. The department is in need of getting a new ambulance sooner than later right now. Our current ambulances are well over 100,000 miles on the lowest of the 3 that we currently own. So this opportunity presented itself pretty quickly over the last 2 months, and we'd like to move ahead and make this order. This ambulance would arrive sometime in the late summer of this summer. It's scheduled to be ready for pickup in Montana in late July. So the total cost we're asking for is $142,628 for the ambulance. The transport costs of $3,500. With graphic installations of $74.27 and radio installation of $1,500, coming to the grand total of $155,055 is what we're requesting. We do have sufficient funds in the fire department fleet fund for this vehicle and for also the previous ambulance that is currently on order and that we're waiting for. We have more than enough funds available within the fire department fleet funds. And with that, I can take any questions.
Any questions for our chief? Yes, Mr. Turk.
For the transportation of that ambulance from Montana to here, if you were able to find a more affordable way to transport that versus taking one of your employees who is already set on a schedule to fly down there and drive that back in a 4, 5, 6 day break. If we approve this, is that still changeable? And Okay.
Absolutely. So I rough estimated the $3,500 and that, like I said, that would be, pretty conservative figure that what it would take for us to do it ourselves, but we would look at all options, there might be a transporter available that would be able to do it for under that amount, but, I'm very confident, that we can at least, send a staff member. We would take possession of the vehicle in Montana at that time and then drive it forward.
Other question? Go ahead. You have the floor. Steve.
My other concern would be for insurance, through Canada. I ran into this with a friend of mine who drove a truck through Canada, ended up, impacting a moose. And because he didn't have international insurance on his policy, they would not cover the $40,000 worth of damage to his vehicle. So he was strictly out of pocket. So before we take that drive, let's make sure we're covered on that if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, definitely. Before we made that, we would definitely look at it. I had never heard of an occasion like that. But that would be, been the intent was, we would get the certificate of origin before we ever left. We would have it registered. We would have plates and title and everything in hand when we went to pick it up and on our insurance policy. But we would definitely, with that knowledge, before it happened, I would definitely get with the city clerk and we would check with our insurance adjuster.
A,
Commercial insurance is just a little bit different than residential insurance. I'm sure we're covered for that drive as a personal vehicle, but commercial insurance.
Good to know.
I want to ask a question while you have a chance. Because I've gone through this with the chief. I'm quite sure this is a good thing for us to do.
Move to approve request to purchase the Denver Type 2 ambulance.
Second.
Oh, motion by Jacobson, second by Clack to purchase this Tembler ambulance. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, I see none.
Okay, on the motion to approve the ambulance purchase, Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mr. Church,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Ms. Clack,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
and Mayor Welch.
Yes. Does anyone want to change that vote? Seeing none, it passes 6-0. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you all.
Did a good job. All right, so that puts us where, Madam Clerk?
That brings us to council member comments because B and C were consent agenda.
That's right. Item 13, council comments. Who's first?
Let's go ahead and start with Mr. Skips.
Okay, good meeting. I just want to bring to your attention that Northport High School girls basketball, they made state. So they won the conference 2 weekends ago. Yes. So they'll be their first playoff game is Wednesday, the 20th at 09:30. And then assured to play Friday. And then depending on win or lose is if they'll go Saturday for the third game to win state. So, yeah, first time girls have gone to state since 1606. So it's been like 18 years. It's been a long time.
Exciting.
So yeah, it's really good. And I'll be flying down there Tuesday morning. Me and my wife. Other than that, yep, nice out. Yep. Public Works, thanks for getting the sand out. Really good. Yeah, just drive safe. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Skips. Ms. Clack?
We have a open house for housing, what would you call it? Coming up be this coming Saturday. That's what I was trying to look up. Along with the workshop that's taking place starting tomorrow. They did a housing, bear with me, I'm trying to pull it up. Housing Action Symposium. So that'll take place on Thursday, the 1st, at 9 to 4:30. And with that, you have,
That taking place?
beg your pardon?
Where's that take place?
That's going to be taking place at Wedgewood at the Borealis Ballroom, Thursday, the 21st, from 9 to 4:30. With that, on Tuesday is the ECDE Energy for Alaska presentation, and that would be at their building on Wendell. And that's going to be from 8 to 9 a.m. in the morning. And that's going to be Suite E. There's going to be the Greater Chamber lunch. And they'll have a senior economics person speaking from Department of Labor and reviewing the demographics driving housing, the trend in Fairbanks. And those of you who like to do housing trivia at the pub at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And that'll be from 7:30 to 9. And then the Carlson Center, that'll be on the March 22nd. That'll be the AIBA Home Show, which will start at, I don't have a time on here, but it's the 22nd through the 24th. So if you're able to make those, that would be really fun to find out what's the new thing for housing. And those of us who like old antique cars, that'll be on the 21st at 4:30 to 6:30. Again, at Wedgewood Resort. And everybody have a nice weekend.
Next, Mr. Jacobson.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Clinton Summers for coming out and sharing his enthusiasm for economic development with vertical gardens. I think it could dovetail nicely into our heat to energy greenhouse project that we're working on, trying to get that funded. And I'm interested in some of his other ideas that he wants to share. I did pass out 2 documents. One of them is referring to the SB 175 about solid waste landfills. The state is putting in new regulations that will affect municipalities and boroughs as far as disposal of things. And so I asked Danny to look at this and the complete document, but the landfill manager for the borough sent me an email in particular that raised some issues that I thought were disturbing, and that is on page 2, lines 6 through 10, regulation of electronic device recycling. This is nothing more than a paragraph by ADEC Solid Waste that undermines the authority of local governments to make decisions in the best interest of the community. In other words, the state ADDC would decide what could be recycled or not regarding electronic recycling, and that should be a local decision. Page 2, lines 22 through 25, powers of the Department of DEC. It has been my experience over the last 30 years that ADEC is ineffective at coordinating, assisting, or cooperating with local governments on any other public-private entities. Page 3, lines 9 through 11. Since when is it the purview of ADEC or the state of Alaska to determine profitability? The state should not be able to pick winners and losers in the marketplace as far as being able to take advantage of recyclables. Page 10, lines 28 to 31. This is an unworkable, uneconomical requirement which could likely lead to manufacturers electing not to sell or ship electronics to Alaska. Lines 14, 26 to 31. This section is written so loosely it functionally would render the transfer site mode of multiple solid waste refuse collections as it is practiced in Alaska illegal. So again, without the full document of the Senate Bill 176, this doesn't make sense. So I encourage council members to look up that Senate Bill 175, I'm sorry, not 176, and see that document and correspond with the legislature regarding that. The other thing that I passed out was also an update from the legislative update. And there are several bills that I think council members and the mayor should weigh in. One is Senate Bill 200, increases the employer contribution rate in the TERS direct contribution retirement plan from 7 to 9%, and requires PERS employers to offer employees a supplemental retirement benefit program, which would be an increased cost to the city of North Pole if that were to go into effect. On the next page, House Bill 150, Residential Building Code, adopts a statewide residential building code in Alaska. It's unclear whether or not that would supersede local municipal building codes or if the statewide one would trump it all. The next one is the one that will hurt a lot of nonprofits in our community. House Bill 200, Gaming Electronic Pull Tabs, allows pull tab games to be expanded from paper to electronic pull tab systems, increase prize limits for permittees, provides some limitations for electronic pull tab systems. In other words, big gambling companies that own electronic gambling machines would move into Alaska and offer pull tabs through their devices, and all of the nonprofits that sell raffles and pull tabs and stuff like that would lose their source of funding because they could not compete with these very aggressive vendors. So that's something that would see a lot of programs that are funded through gaming affected in our community. Another one that's of concern is the very last one, House Bill 378, Organized Retail Theft Fund Marketplace Sales Tax, establishes a 2% statewide marketplace facilitator sales tax. I'm not sure what that means. Defines and establishes the crime of organized retail theft in varying degrees, which is a growing problem, not only in Alaska, but throughout our country, where they smash and grab and take things. But this allows the tax proceeds to fund law enforcement agencies' investigation and prosecution of organized retail theft. So that would affect, again, our sales tax in our community if this was added on statewide. So just things that for council members to consider contacting their legislature on one way or the other. I was able to have an interview with Blair today. We spoke for quite at length, and I expressed to her that the 2016 document that we have, the Comprehensive Strategic Plan for North Pole, that was published in July 2016, virtually all of us on council, except for the mayor, did not know it even existed. And if you take the time to read it, it really was well researched, really well-defined goals and strategies that had been ignored. And one of the things that I would like to see us do with this update, and I'll probably propose some sort of ordinance to say that, is that all future budgets will have to reference the comprehensive strategic plan, where their budget requests, their purchases, their grant applications, how it ties back to this, so that, you know, this document becomes a tool for saying, this is what we believe in, this is the direction we're going to take our community in. So everything we do needs to tie back into it. Now, it might sound like it's an overburden, but really it's not. It's quite easy to tie into these things. And then it makes sense to the community of why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we spending this money? What is this budget based on? Because we have a strategic plan that says this is what we want to have happen in our community. And so tying everything that we do into that, I think will be helpful. And we won't have a plan sitting on the shelf for 10 years that no one's seen or even referenced. So I think that's something that we should consider once this update gets done. Also, there's a flyer that was put out that's Make Us Shine. It's the Fairbanks North Star Borough Highway Cleanup Day, May 11th, 2024. And at the bottom part of it, there's an interesting comment, number 2, junk cars. We have 2 properties in North Pole in particular. I think one on Fifth Avenue that we addressed last year with the police department that had lots of junk cars. And then at our last council meeting, there was a family that came in and expressed concern about their neighbors who were throwing rocks and bones and metal pieces at their house, and also have a variety of wrecked cars, junk cars growing on their property. I think the Code Enforcement Committee should meet in April and strategize how to identify which properties we want to have the junk cars towed from and recycled virtually at no cost to the homeowner, because right now there is a cost. I think the only requirement according to K&K Recycling is that all fluids and garbage inside the vehicle must be removed. So basically drain all the engine fluids and make sure there's nothing in the car except what it comes out of the factory with. So that's something I think that could be beneficial for our community and not be a burden as far as expense to residents. And that concludes my comments.
Mr. Keller, you're next.
Yes, last week, oh man, it's been a long week. I went to Chamber of Commerce meeting, and we had a presentation on the Alaska budget, done by a woman, and I can't remember her name. Anyways, the website is akbudget.com, and you can actually go in and mock budget what you would do to balance the state budget. It was interesting to have this conversation with business owners within the Chamber of Commerce for Greater Fairbanks Chamber of Commerce. It's a wide variety of people talking about what they would give up, what they would actually vote for if they were in the meeting. What this Commonwealth North program is doing is gathering all of this information from Alaskans, and then they're going to be presenting it to the legislative body and saying this is what the people want. So there's options in there of different things. The one that really caught everybody's eye was if we just ship out all of the long-term prisoners out of the state. There's about 300 of them, according to this document. That would have saved the state $11 million. So then I started asking questions outside of that meeting, and one of the concerns is does that $11 million actually include the advancing cost of medical for the people that are shipped out of state? Oftentimes they're shipped out of state, and then after they pass away or they're released, that's when the state gets the bill of all the medical expenses that were given to them while they're incarcerated, which can over exceed the $11 million that we would actually potentially save. So that's one question I didn't get to ask Commonwealth North because I didn't have that information when I was there. But this website is a good opportunity for us to get more knowledge about the deficit that we have. It also talks about the different ways that PFD could be attacked or utilized to help the state funding or to go by what is actually in the state constitution. So it's a great way to go in and get educated and then let it be known to our legislators how we feel it should be done. A lot has been said with the the school district and the closing of Eielson High School, on the chopping block. I would like to see a proposal, because the school district was given 5 options to actually help with the deficit. And all 5 options included Eielson High School being closed. We need to see an option that Eielson High School was not closed, because that to me is a good show and faith to the military there that we want them to continue to grow. So that's my personal soapbox, and sandbox, meddling in it, right? I also want to publicly thank Mr. Summers for coming in. He hit something that I've looked at multiple times: hydroponics, even aquaponics, how we can get food production closer here. If we have one major event that closes down the rail, closes down the roads, we're kind of hosed unless we get some cargo planes, which I don't think will happen for food. But I think this is a great opportunity. It would not only produce a lot of food for our community, and we know that local vendors could actually sell this produce. Whenever Three Bears comes in, they could sell the produce. Safeway, Fred Meyer's, they're always in the local hire or local sourcing. But also the food bank. Think all the good produce that we can give to the food bank to bless this the hunger population here. So with that, it is getting warmer. It's great to see the sun. I can't believe it's almost 12 and 12 hours now of daylight and sun. That's crazy. So I'm trying to bask in the sunlight as much as possible. And I have a deep appreciation for the employees of the city from the top down. For as big or as small as the city is, or whatever you want to call it, we have some pretty good employees that keep this thing going. So please feel my heartfelt appreciation from top down. It's a good place to live.
Thank you, Mr. Keller. Mr. Church?
Mr. Jacobson, I want to say thank you for bringing up House Bill 150. As a Realtor, I encourage everybody from builders to really look into that and dive into it. It is an awful suggestion because our state differs so much. It's all over the place. It really is. And Prudhoe Bay and New Wixik and Fort Wainwright and Nome, all of these villages have different requirements that don't work for cities, municipalities, and anywhere around here. So thank you for bringing that up. If you are a builder, realtor, or anything in the housing industry, please make a phone call about that. Along those same lines, the borough is updating the strategic road program in our area. So if there is a road that you have ever thought this makes sense to put here, please make your voice known now. It is more important than ever. They have the plan up on the borough website for you to take a look at. If there's a road where you think it is absolutely ridiculous for them to put it in there, please make your voice known. It's super important to help our community grow. Roads and infrastructure are really the way to do that. And make it happen. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Church. Mayor Welch?
So great. Well, I'm glad to see people are following what you're supposed to do too in closing comments. You're not supposed to talk about the business that already proceeded today, so I won't. And it was very encouraging for Jeff to do something here because it reminds me of the councils of past. And the most entertaining persons we used to have was Jim Taylor, if you remember Councilman Taylor. I'd wait around all night just to hear what Jim was going to tell us, but he had some quite interesting tales. But with that in mind, one of the things, because of Clinton that was here to see us tonight, I kind of follow things in the newspaper. That's part of my getting up in the morning at 4:45, 5 o'clock, and getting back up at that time. Oh, no, by the way, my doctor put me on a 7-hour day now. So by April 5th, if not sooner, I should be on back to full time. So I'm pretty close to being full time. I just can't get there yet. They don't want me to relapse. So anyway, getting up in the morning as early as I can to read the digital section of the paper. So here I have it in paper copy though. And I don't know if how many people saw yesterday the Biden officials mold a quicker death for U.S. coal power plants and what that could mean to us in having a coal powered combined heat power. Because Usabelli, for those of you who don't know, is 120 miles from here down in Healy. You have enough coal for the whole state of Alaska. If it grew 7% a year, they still have enough coal for 300 years. It's one of those things. But they could be forced to shut down 2 years sooner than what was envisioned because of the Biden administration's plan to stifle pollution from the electricity sector. And if we were running combined heat and power, that's what we're going to do. We're going to provide electricity to Golden Valley to make up for them shutting down Healy 2 and all those wonderful things, right? The potential change would be considered now by the administration to accelerate required retirement date for coal plants that opt against installing any kind of carbon removal technology. 2 years ago, when I was in Juneau, the big buzz around Click Bishop's office and all was carbon sequestration. So I started telling them what it was because I knew that from dealing with Brent Sheets and Randy Hobbs and all on the project we were on. So I don't think it would work, but they were talking about us being paid to capture carbon. So we'd have carbon credits. Those of us who know anything about Catholicism and the Protestant church, it was something synonymous to selling grace, acts of indulgence. How are you going to get someone to buy your carbon credit? How do you trade it back and forth? So I think in some ways, as we get into 2024, they start to realize that might be pie for the sky, that there's not going to be any real carbon credits. But if you're still having a cleaner atmosphere, I guess that's worth it in itself. But they're talking about shuttering down all these companies by the year 2040. And now they're not just talking about coal, they're also talking about gas. So when I first came on board, the whole idea was coal because we could buy coal for a few $100s a ton. There wasn't a big gas find. We knew that down on the Kenai, that was all running out, that Cook Inlet gas. And lo and behold, the last few days of January of last year, like 14 months ago, was the Hill Core big find up on the Arctic slope. So as we're sitting there with Golden Valley, as God is my witness, on February 3rd of last year on a Friday, we didn't know about that big find. It wasn't really made public yet. And we were trying to put ourselves in a situation where I realized that the techno people on our combined heat power were not getting the political end of the deal with Golden Valley. Because there's one thing I think they failed to realize on this committee I was on, and that is that Golden Valley has to be responsible to its shareholders. And those of us who buy electricity, that's who we are. We're in a co-op. So they want it to look like we're green and we're using renewables and all, even if it doesn't make sense. But all of a sudden now we move forward and we have opportunities abound that are in front of us, but it was never envisioned the city of North Pole would run it. So I think we're back to a limited liability partnership type thing, but we want someone like Harrison Street that was up here last year, that's private equity people to actually run it. No one has ever explained to me why the city of Seward wanted to do away with its electric co-op. No one's ever explained that. All I know is they didn't want their neighbor Chugiak Electric to get it. They wanted it to go to Homer. But in May of last year, their citizens voted it down. So they're still stuck with it. So I don't know what that's all about. Other than that, I'll tell you that in this upcoming few weeks, there are going to be some high-level dignitaries that are going to be up here visiting. And one of them will be the Secretary of Defense and his entourage, Secretary of the Air Force and his entourage. And guess what? None of us will have access to them. They will be so extremely busy about what's going on up here that I doubt any of us will have access to them. It is getting real dicey what's going on in the world right now. And if you see that, pray for it, because it's not something we want to have a target on our back, but I think we do, whether we like it or not. And things that are going on really lead me to wonder where we're at. As we go forward, I'm glad that you were kind of reminded that it is nice to go to these community events. The community expects to see us there. So we'll try our best to get the word out where all these events are at, and I'm sure the clerk will help us do that. But it's going to be to you guys to find the time to go and do it. And so I think I've spoken enough tonight, and it's 2 minutes before 9. So without further ado, I'll call for anybody who wants to adjourn us.
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 58. Thank you.
All right, Church, seconded by Skips. We are done at 8:58.
I better plug my phone in. Yeah, there's a lot of things. Well, thanks for hanging in there on that boat.
Must have been tuning in.
What's that?